It's time for Real Estate 101 with the Karey Brown team from Realty Executives Preferred Advisors.
Good Sunday morning to you. This is Karey Brown, broker-owner of Realty Executives Preferred Advisors, and you're listening to Real Estate 101. Today I am here with Tim Kolling and Lance. We're going to be talking about St. Jude and how they make such a huge difference to the families that need them. So,
all right. We did a lunch in December, and I know some of the staff from Realty Executives came by, and the experience was basically, I have been to the hospital in Memphis at St. Jude for, probably 6 or 7 years for a seminar on Country Cares Radio, which is where they show us how to put on the radiothon, how to raise money for St. Jude. So we wanted to find a way to get that experience. We took Invista Credit Union with us last year when we went to the seminars because they're a title sponsor of a lot of what we do with the radiothon. And the marketing person from there that went with us after the weekend was just, as she said, she drank the Kool-Aid. She said, this is the most amazing thing that we need to help fund. And she said, how can I get that experience to my staff? So we put together a lunch where we explained what St. Jude does as far as the research and what they do for the families. And then we had some wonderful families like Lance himself and others talk about their experience there and kind of brought a little bit of that back here to their staff. And then we decided to invite other people to that as far as clients and sponsors. And it kind of grew from there, and then that's when we decided to come on the show today.
So, Lance, I would love to have you tell people your story.
My son, Dagan, was 2.5 years old when he was diagnosed with leukemia, and that was at the KU Med in Kansas City. But ironically, even though he was there, his first set of protocol was a protocol designed from St. Jude through their research and trials and studies. So the doctors at KU had reached out to St. Jude to make sure this was the correct protocol. And after Dagan went through his initial treatment at KU Med, he was in remission and doing okay. And then he relapsed. And at that point, KU Med kind of were like, there's nothing else we can do here. We've exhausted all of our potential trials and studies, and so they've recommended us to St. Jude. But we also kind of got a little hand with 580 Radio and their staff, being that they were working with St. Jude on the radiothon and stuff. They helped us get in touch and get us the referral that we needed. And ended up at St. Jude for an initial, a weekend visit. And so we had came from KU, where Dagan was one or two children in the pediatrics floor dealing with something as life-threatening as this. And we walk in the doors of St. Jude, and every single kid around you is experiencing very similar life-threatening illnesses. But every staff member, every volunteer, the security guards, every parent, every child walking around that hospital had such an inspiration and such a smile and such a way of making it that it wasn't this I'm going to just be down and out kind of thing. It was a great place for hope. And I love that hope is one of St. Jude's key words that they use a lot. It was an amazing thing for us.
Absolutely. So how long were you guys at St. Jude?
St. Jude, originally I said the first time was there for a weekend, and we went home and came back, and that would have been in August, and we were there. Dagan got to come home on New Year's Day. That would have been in 2004. On New Year's Day he came home. Actually, it was 2005. So we were there for about 4 months, and they have different facilities to stay at while you're there. If you're just going to be there for a day or two, you stay at a hotel. It's called the Grizzly House, and it's on site of St. Jude. You don't have to pay for room or board or anything, and they get you in. They have maid service. They have, just like any hotel you pull up to, but it's right on St. Jude's property. If you're going to be there from 2 days to a month, you might end up in the Ronald McDonald House. And then if you're going to be there for an extended period of time, then you end up in the Target House, which are 2 apartment complexes. One has 49 rooms, the other one has 50 rooms, and that's where we ended up staying, was at the Target House. So we didn't have to pay for room and board, we didn't have to pay for electricity, we didn't have to pay for cable or phone or any of that stuff. We didn't have to look for a place to seek shelter while we were down there in Memphis. And so it was about 4 months of our life was in their care of St. Jude, and it's touching.
So, Lance, you mentioned that you had contacted WIBW to get 580 AM to get help to get that referral. So, Tim, how did that work out?
We have been doing the Radiothon, or the Country Cares Radiothon, since, the inception in 1989. It was a program where Randy Owen, the lead singer of Alabama, went to visit the hospital and walked around with Danny Thomas and got the tour. And, basically when it was done, he goes, tell me what I can do, anything in my power to help raise money for you. And we came up with the Country Cares Radiothons, and we've been doing the Radiothon since 1989 here at 94 Country 580. Now we do it on Country 106.9 as well. But it's a fundraising radiothon for 2 days. We're asking people to become a partner in hope. As a partner in hope, you are committing to at least $20 a month on a debit or credit card. And then that money goes to St. Jude for, like Lance said, when you find out your child has cancer, the last thing you want to worry about is, how am I going to pay for this? And being there for these seminars, that's what the parents are, when they first find out in their local communities, it's, not only devastating, but then, financially, how are we going to help our child live? And that's what St. Jude is all about. You don't have a bill. You don't have, they pay for transportation. They pay for food. They pay for accommodations. They pay for the research. Really, you usually walk out of there with nothing as far as being owed. I got to tour the Target House, and it's absolutely amazing. One room was completely done by, what's his name? Sean, snowboarder. Sean White, yeah. He did a whole room. And then Disney did an entire room. Brad Paisley did an entire room. Amy Grant has the music room there that she completely funded. So it's, St. Jude is a place where they're not there just for care. There's education for not only the kids but siblings. They don't want them to miss anything for being out of school. They have the dentist there, eye care. They want to know as they're doing the research, they want to know what it's doing to all parts of the child, not only to the area where they're having cancer. Is it affecting their dental? Is it affecting their eyesight? What's it doing? So it's amazing. And one thing, there's only 75 beds there. So there's not a lot of kids there. It's mainly research. So a lot of people say, well, St. Jude isn't local. I don't think there's anything more local, because they're sending all that research out. They share it freely. Nobody has to pay for it. And then it goes into, St. Jude will do a lot of the protocols for kids in our area, and that's how it started with Lance. But it's more local than you would ever think, and that's why we support it so much, because like Danny said, Thomas, the founder, no child should die in the dawn of life. So that's really, once you're there and once you see what they do, and then once you see how it affects people back here, we have a lot of families that will come in during the Radiothon that have been affected through St. Jude, and that just can't wait to share their story.
So how can people get involved?
They can get involved. The Radiothon is coming up at the end of February, the last Thursday and Friday of February. And basically we turn over 13 hours a day for those 2 days, from 6 in the morning to 7 at night, to St. Jude. Their staff comes in and works with our announcers on the air. We play different music that has been put together by St. Jude and country artists. It's kind of a fun time because we really decorate up the radio stations. We have families come in. Lance comes in every year and share their stories. And then we have in our back conference room set up as a phone bank, and we have a group of volunteers that come in and man the phones, and it's just like a telethon, radiothon. They're back there answering the phones and getting those pledges, and last year we did just over $90,000 in 2 days. So, and that's all new money. People who renew don't count in those figures. So, $90,000 worth of new money going to St. Jude's, plus all those that renew from year to year. So, it's an amazing time. It's an amazing experience, and we can't do enough for St. Jude.
So, Lance, tell me Dagan's story. I know it was short, but it kept going even after he passed.
Yeah, that's great. He was diagnosed with AML, acute myeloid leukemia, which is a very rare form of leukemia for children. It's often a secondary cancer, something an adult may get after they've already had one type of cancer and gone through treatment if they relapse sometimes. So it's for adults, it's a little more common, a little easier to treat. Whereas for children, it's a lot more rare and harder to treat. Just like ALL is common in children and easier to treat, if an adult gets ALL, it's more difficult to treat. So Dagan was facing an uphill battle from the beginning. And after all his treatment, I was his donor for the experimental transplant they did called a haplotransplant at St. Jude. And after he was released from the hospital, everything was going well. He was doing good. He had the graft versus host disease, and doctors were pleased with everything. He came home on New Year's Day, St. Jude doesn't just let you go at that point. You have to come back for further checkups and tests and things. And a couple of those went fine, and it was actually on a Friday the 13th. It was Mother's Day weekend, so it was in May of 2005. Dagan had gone back with his mom, and she knew there was something was wrong with him. Just what he wasn't quite behaving the way he normally would, and they did the test and gave us that news that he had relapsed. And at that point, St. Jude said there was really not a whole lot more they could do. We could try more treatment. The chemotherapy would damage his body more than what it already had. It wouldn't cure the cancer. It wouldn't make it go away. He wouldn't be in remission anymore. We could take him home and let him live out his life at home. And that was the option that we chose to do, because it became a quality of life more than a quantity of life at that point. And then after Dagan passed, he passed away in July of 2005. So fast forward to about 2015. So maybe 8 to 10 years later, I get an email from a research doctor at St. Jude indicating that the research and information they had from Dagan's study and treatment, there was some sort of breakthrough they had. And I couldn't tell you exactly what that breakthrough is, but they are still looking to try to find a cure, so nobody else has to go through what Dagan went through. So no other parent's child, no other sibling's brother or sister or grandchildren have to go through that. And so they keep fighting. They keep searching. You can go by the hospital at 1 or 2 in the morning and still see lights on. And that just kind of, that they took the time to notify me of that, that, hey, we've made a step closer. It didn't like validate everything for me, but it kind of gave me this sense of, okay, Dagan, you're still fighting even though you're gone, and St. Jude is still fighting for you even though you're gone.
Please join us again after a word from our sponsors.
Southwest Topeka has a good neighbor. State Farm agent Jim Garrison, now at 29th and Urish. If your current insurance situation has you going around in circles, get off the roundabout and stop in and meet Jim and his wonderfully efficient staff. Let Jim Garrison give you a quote and make the Garrison comparison. He's confident that with State Farm's competitive rates, the right coverage, and his unmatched service, you'll want to make him your new insurance agent. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there, and Jim Garrison is there for you, northeast of the roundabout at 29th and Urish.
This is Stephen Parkin at Invista Credit Union. Purchasing a home is one of the most exciting and important decisions someone can make. Let me tell you why Invista is the best choice for financing your new home purchase. First, quick pre-approval process. Our fast decision-making gives you the power to act quickly and make an offer on your dream home. Second, local servicing. We service your mortgage in-house. You won't get a long-distance runaround, but a committed professional whose only job is to help you. Third, experienced team. We are dedicated to simplifying the process and educating you through the home buying process. Come by Invista. It's okay to dream. In fact, it's encouraged. We are your home buying partner. Give us a call at 785-228-0149.
Thanks for joining us again. This is Karey Brown, broker owner of Realty Executives Preferred Advisors, and you're listening to Real Estate 101. I am back with Tim Kolling. Tim is a listing agent for our team, and he's also one of the marketing guys here at WIBW 580 AM. And I'm back also with Lance Fye. Lance, we were talking about your son at Dagan and his journey at St. Jude. During the break, we were discussing what St. Jude is like for the family. So if you would elaborate on that.
Yeah, St. Jude, kind of the entire concept that they have from start to finish, from you're coming here to we're releasing you, it's kind of really maybe the most complete thing I've ever really seen. The entire family, if they have events going on down there, at the Target House, they have a lot of volunteer sororities or fraternities or corporations come in and work with the kids. They allow the siblings to come along and take a part of that, because it does get often, Dagan was 2.5, 3.5. Well, Alexa, our daughter, was only 8 at the time. So she's not able to process, why is he getting all this attention and I'm not getting all this attention? So they include the other children in some of those activities to try to help, keep the family as a nucleus as they can. They offer school curriculums for the patients if they're school age. Dagan was not. Alexa would have been able to, but was never really there for the length of time. But they have teachers on staff. They have the social workers on staff. Tim mentioned the dentist and the optometrist and the audiologist. All those things Dagan went through to measure his hearing and sight and keep track of that. But it's all kind of brought back in with the entire family. And I want to also stress the entire city of Memphis really embraces St. Jude. It's not just on St. Jude's campus, but the entire city. And they welcome us, but St. Jude just, the family is something that they're core about, and they bring you back. I actually got to go back after Dagan passed away for. They had Remembrance Days where we'd go back, and I actually sat on a panel up on the stage in front of all these other families who's recently lost children. They also have a Survivors Day where families who have survivors go back, but so you kind of have this division of that, but. They really strive to make sure that the family is being tended to the best that they possibly can, because they know how hard it can be with stress on everybody involved.
Absolutely. And we were discussing, everybody's been touched by it in some way. Sitting here, I was discussing a friend of mine whose daughter got it or was diagnosed with it, and she is a survivor. And, that there are always long-term effects from the treatments that took place, but she was able to survive, and how we both knew the same people. So you get to where you go, and you meet a lot of the same people that are going through the same fight you are at the same time, or even after.
Yeah, and even more people that I meet today who are diagnosed and their children, and I knew them prior to their child being diagnosed because they got involved with helping fundraising for Dagan's Foundation and through St. Jude things. And then all of a sudden their child is diagnosed with something, and the impact of that. There isn't a person out there that I can tell you that doesn't know somebody at some point who has been impacted by this from all over, all walks of life, everywhere.
Absolutely. There are so many different types of cancers, and, you would hope that it wouldn't happen to a child, but unfortunately it does. As adults, there are things that we do like smoking. I know my dad had kidney cancer and had smoked since he was 12. So, that was back in the day when smoking was cool. So there are always those contributing factors. But for a child, they didn't do anything to ask for those types of things to happen to them.
Right. They just ended up with this bad luck of stuff and didn't know luck of, nothing of their own doing. It just happened.
Absolutely. So you still go back and visit St. Jude?
I haven't been back for about 3 or 4 years, but I was regularly going back and visiting. I think there's a trip in the future this summer of possibly going back and taking some family. Recently got remarried and have four children that have never met Dagan, but see Dagan all around the house and watch video. But this is part of his life they don't really know, and so I think we're going to go back and kind of go through St. Jude and let them kind of get the inspiration and feeling of not just Dagan, but the hospital, the staff, and the other patients, and everything that the energy that place creates.
Absolutely. I know that is definitely something that will stick with them even after. You don't know what it's like until you're standing there and can see other families dealing with it.
That you're right, and even with me going through that with Dagan, I didn't know that until I walked through those doors, and I went, oh my gosh, I cannot. The hospital itself is the most amazing, happy place ever. The kids, not a single one of those kids were like beaten by their illness. They were all victorious with that. But just as an adult and a parent watching all these kids, even my own child, I just felt so desolate with it, and seeing how bad it was for them, but then watching them, kind of that energy just goes through the parents, and the parents start to have that energy and becoming a little more optimistic.
I would agree. Being there, going through the hospital, I'm going to say 6 times now I've gone to the conference. The first time I went, I was actually worried about going. I didn't want to go, I didn't want to see kids that were sick. I was worried about it. And then when you first walk through the doors, it's amazing because all of the counters, everything are accommodating for kids. They're low, so when kids walk up, they're not, trying to look over a big, tall counter. All the counters are lower for kids. All the hallways are mural paintings up and down, different themes. They have a lot of the kids do art. One thing that we always talk about is the ABCs of cancer. Right outside of the cafeteria, they have a artwork for each letter of the alphabet that are kids, and it's a poem. And it's funny because, it's done by kids, and they've got like V is for vomit. They've got K is for chemotherapy because, a kid was spelling it. Or me was spelling it. But it's really amazing to see the energy there, and in talking to several families that have been there. If you go eat at the cafeteria, it is you sat down to eat, and the person next to you might be one of the lead researchers. I mean, they just all eat together in the same cafeteria, and they all just talk. And so you could be next to one of the smartest doctors in the world sitting there eating lunch, but, they don't care because they're there for the same reason. One of the first times I went, I think one of the things that affected me the most is one of the people that spoke said, our goal here is to walk down to the Mississippi River and throw the key in the water and close the doors because we've cured everything. So, you never go to a place that has an operation like they have that would rather close their doors because they've accomplished what they wanted to. But we were doing a tour one time, and a lady came out during our tour and spoke to us for a little bit, and then went back into where she was working. And after she went back in and shut the door, our guide that day said that the lady that came out and talked to us was a researcher, and she basically had graduated Stanford and could have wrote her ticket to go anywhere and asked for any amount of money she wanted to because she was one of the top people in the country. And as she was touring the nation looking at different hospitals, she stopped at St. Jude. And it, I guess, overwhelmed her, and she said, I don't care what I make, I want to be here, and I want to be doing research, here. So she could have been making a lot more money at other hospitals, but what they do at St. Jude really affected her, and that's where she wanted to be. So it's an amazing place with a lot of amazing people, and a lot of the things that we do there when we go to these seminars are put on by kids who were survivors that are now adults looking back, and they still want to be part of it. And now they're working, whether it be in the marketing arm or the fundraising arm or whatever, they want to come back because it's influenced them so positively. And when you speak to some of these kids, we do a lot of, like Lance was talking about, a lot of the family panels will talk to us, whether they, things turned out well or didn't turn out well for them. They want to share their story. So we get to see a lot of that, and then that gives us the energy to come back here and raise money through the radiothon. So it's an amazing place, and I remember before I came to work here, we lived in Salina, and you always see things about St. Jude on during football games, or they have the Marlo Thomas, Danny's daughter, who's in charge of a lot of the fundraising now, you see the, what do you call those, hour-long infomercial type things. So you're aware of it and you know what they do, and it's hard to watch them because some of them are sad, but then when you go there it's just like wow. And then they have the hallway of all the big donors, and you see a lot of Elvis Presley's, you see a lot of the people that were inspired by walking through there, and now you see a lot of the country artists that go through there. Carrie Underwood's just she does a lot for it. Like I said, Brad Paisley donates for a lot of the rooms, Amy Grant, a lot of them that come through there, and then we get to meet some of them while we're there because they're there to support St. Jude as well, and it's neat to see all the people that come together.
So, Tim, tell us real quick what, when, and where, and all that good stuff for the Radiothon. When will that be?
All right. We do a little bit all year long, but the main focus is right after the first of the year, we have our 2-day Radiothon. This year it is February 22nd and 23rd, the last Thursday and Friday of February. And like I said, it's basically where we turn the radio station over to St. Jude and their staff, their group that comes to help us. And they are here. As soon as we go on the air at 6 in the morning on that Thursday, until we are done at 7, and then we do it again on Friday, 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. And basically, it's like our regular day, but it's all St. Jude focused. We do story songs that they put together by country artists who do things for St. Jude. We talk about the things that they're doing, how they originally, when they started in, I think it was 62 when they opened the hospital, only 4%, I believe, of children survived any kind of childhood cancer. Now it's well over 80%. Some of them are in the upper 90s, depending on the cancer. So it's the things they do there are amazing. They even, for years, have been the place where they put together the formula for the flu shot, because how that affects the kids, they will put that together, and that's usually the recipe that goes out to everybody for the flu shot that year. So they do a lot of research, and it's a research hospital, so they're really wanting to do the fundraising.
So if you are looking to donate, be sure and catch the Radiothon February 22nd and 23rd. Also, I know I've mentioned it multiple times, but as a company, we donate 5% of our commissions back to a charity of our client's choice. So if you were wanting to donate to St. Jude, we would happily do that. We donate that out of our own commissions, and we would, again, be very happy to do that. Thank you so much, Lance, for coming in and talking with us. I really appreciate you taking the time, and thanks for listening to Real Estate 101.
Thank you for listening to Real Estate 101 with the Karey Brown team from Realty Executives Preferred Advisors. Tune in again next Sunday at 11 o'clock for Real Estate 101.